Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here with a new layout for the Hip Kit Club, and I'm using the 2017 October kits again. This is my fourth layout using these kits, and I've been wanting to cut out some of these pink flowers from the Jen Hadfield pattern paper, and so I cut a few out and decided, yep, I really like these, so I better start filming. I thought I had already clicked record, but apparently I had started. I was so excited, I just went ahead and started. So anyway, you didn't miss anything except me cutting out those flowers. So I'm going to keep cutting, and I don't cut out all of them, but I cut out more than I actually wind up using. But yeah, I just know I want to use them somehow. I wanted to create a light and pink girly type layout since there are a lot of bold colors, and those are my pictures of me and Reese. We were doing some selfies a while ago, and this actually, even though the layout itself is really light and a lot of the light pink and white, it's kind of a dramatic layout because the pictures have so much black and dark shades in them. It's this really severe contrast between the lights and the darks, and I think it turns out really pretty. I like how it turns out. I'm going to use this. This paper here is also a Jen Hadfield paper. Beautiful cream and light pink diagonal stripe, and I'm just using some white acrylic paint and some white gesso to kind of smudge out a lot of the area, and you're still going to be able to see plenty of the stripes, but I want to do some mixed media here since this is for Mixed Media Monday, and you know I love adding shimmers and paints and things to my background, and so I want to protect the paper because this is just a pattern paper. It's not watercolor paper, so it's pretty thin, especially when you're going to start to add wet things to it like sprays or mists or paints. If you add a lot of it, it could very easily tear or rip your paper, and so the gesso and the paint sort of harden it up a little bit and act as a primer, and plus it also gives you some white space here. Sometimes if you add color like this directly to a pattern paper, it's going to soak right into the color of whatever the paper is, and it changes the color of the paint. And so if you have white surface, it's going to stay the true color. So what I'm doing here is sort of trying to create a really pretty corally pink color, and so I'm using the Mango Tango Vibes from the color kit this month, and I'm mixing it with grapefruit, and we actually got the grapefruit, I believe it's a Creamies, several months ago in a color kit. It's a really pretty light coral color, and when this dried it was just a little too dark than what I wanted. And so what do when you mess up your color? Just add some gesso over it and smudge it down. So I'm using my palette knife here just to smudge some gesso over it, and what this is going to do is kind of lighten everything up and just sort of create another layer of texture. And it's going to sort of, when I use the palette knife, it's not going to look like the packaging technique anymore. It's just going to look like smudges or smears or splotches, whatever you want to call it. There's no technical term for it, but you can see the difference here using a palette knife versus using the packaging. You get a different shape, you get a different, it just looks different. And I like it. I think it's different, and I'm just trying to get the color in my mind. I want it to be darker than the stripes in the paper, but I don't want it to be hot pink. I don't want it to be really, really dark. Like I said, I want this to be kind of light, although it sort of takes a turn, and you'll see what I mean. It still winds up being kind of bright with some bold colors here and there, but I still think it turns out very feminine and girly. I don't use any of the blue, and if you have these kits, then you know there's a lot of royal blue and darker blues. I don't wind up using any of the blues, so I was trying to focus on the warm colors. Now this is the Old Yeller. This is also in the color kit. It's the Inklings, and it's a very golden yellow. So I'm just trying to mix that with a little bit of the grapefruit to create more of a pinky orange color. And even though this is turning out bolder than I thought, I really like how it looks, and so I just go with it. And I'm just trying to get some splotches of color on the background. I busted up into the Heidi Swapp Color Shine. I'm addicted to this stuff. I use it all the time. I don't know. I've just been in a gold mood lately, and we got that, I think, in a color kit. Maybe it was the last year, 2 years ago. It's still going strong. I use it. I'm gonna be really sad when I run out. I better stock up. But I had to add some gold to this. I think it was the perfect touch. Now, this is one of the new cut files. I don't know if they are available yet, but there's one of the cut files coming for November, and so keep checking the website. Terry, who's also a DT member, she designed this really pretty, it's very delicate. It's a leafy floral wreath, I guess you could say, and I cut 2 of them in different sizes, and I'm going to use those as layering. So now I'm going to get to work on jazzing up my pictures here, and I just added some tissue paper, and I want these to kind of stack vertically but kind of at a crooked angle like that. And you can see here what I'm going to do with these rings. They're very, very pretty. It's very delicate and very thin, so be careful when you cut those on your Cameo or your Cricut. I'm going to use some of the Project Life cards as layers behind the pictures, and at this point I was just focusing on the pinks. I just wanted everything pink, but there's really not a ton of pink embellishments. Most of the embellishments are Pink Fresh Studio, and they're the ones that have the black, the golden yellow, the mint, and that royal blue. And so I found it hard to just limit myself to pink. Now, I am going to use these butterflies, but I do play around with where they're going to go. I added a little bit more to the background down at the bottom because I felt like there wasn't a lot down there. And then I decided to go with adding in some of that golden yellow and some of the light mint color. And I was happy with how that turned out. I didn't think I wanted it at first, but once I played around with those Project Life cards and added them under the picture, I think it was a nice contrast, and it winds up looking really pretty. And I am going to add some little black and white elements. That was a Pink Fresh Studio tag that I just hacked in half so I could use half at the top and half at the bottom. You know, I've looked at these tags the entire month, and I still have not worked them into a layout yet. And you know, you get to a point where you're like, if I have not used it yet, find a way to use it. And so if it means cutting it in half, then do it. You know, I did not use it in a typical way that you would use a tag. You couldn't even tell that it is a tag. Cut it in half, use it as a layer. You know, there's always a use for something, even if you have to cut it up and, you know, make it look unrecognizable than what it was intended for, because there's no rules. If you want to cut it up, then cut it up. So I kind of glued everything together to where I know those Project Life cards are going to be there. I know where those flowers are going to go. So I went ahead and glued those together so I could kind of move around the pictures and what I've got here together without having to disassemble it every 5 minutes. So this is the next day, and you can tell my lighting is a little bit different. It's earlier in the morning. I decided to fussy cut this part that says About Us out of a Project Life card, and I want to incorporate that somehow onto my page. Now this is just some adhesive foam from my stash that I'm going to use to give my photos a little bit of dimension there and raise them up off the page. And I pulled out my matching colors of thread here. I've got the light pink, I've got the yellow or the golden yellow, and then that light mint color. I'm going to use a little bit of each of those, and this is just for some added messiness and a little bit of added color and texture. And I'm also going to incorporate some of the leaves. You can see I moved the butterflies around a little bit, and I added in 2 of the yellow golden Pink Fresh Studio die cut leaves, and then 2 of the exclusive Hip Kit wood veneer leaves. And I'm also going to use one of those little vellum stitched hearts down there at the bottom. And that's the only one I'm going to use because it's pink and it matched. The rest of them were either the wrong color or they were black, and I felt like I had enough black going on with the amount of black that's in the pictures and the butterflies and things like that. I didn't want to add too many more dark elements. Now I fussy cut this word out, and I thought I was going to use it. I wind up not using it. I just couldn't find a place for it, and it didn't really go with anything at that time, but I thought I would try it. And then I just keep working in some more of the flowers here and there. I didn't want to add too many of those dark leaves. The leaves on those flowers are really dark, and they're green. They look black from this angle, but I didn't want to darken up the page anymore, like I said, so I try to stick with keeping everything light from this point on. And for some reason, I like how that looks tucked in there in the middle of the two pictures. I'm going to wind up using the die cut that says love, and my main focus for this is I wanted to use these thickers, these Spooktacular matte gold. They are gorgeous. I had not used them yet, and I thought, you're going to use them on this layout, make it work. And our theme this week is gratitude and being thankful, and I thought I would name this Thank You. I wind up changing it, which I'll do in a minute. And for some reason, I don't even know why, I'm going to tuck this love right there, and you can't even read it. But I like how it looks for some reason, even just as a little design element. I don't know. I'm going to leave it there. I like it. And then you saw I just ripped up another tag that said XO. I tore it off, and I'm going to stick down the XOXO part. Now, I decided to change my title. I'm still going to use the gold thickers for the word heart. I just decided to name this Grateful Heart. And I'm going to use the Goosebumps Pretty Little Studio Tiny Alphas for Grateful. Now, my only issue with this is that blue is a different color than the mint I've got going on. So that's a brand new color that I just introduced. So I'm going to have to do something about that. But there were no other tiny alphas tiny enough to create a small title like this. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use those, even though it's a new color that I don't have on the layout. But I'm going to show you what I do to fix that, because I can't have just one thing on my layout that's it's a different color than everything else. I've got to have that color somewhere else on the layout. This is more gold. Got to have more gold. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make splatters in that color. So I take some blue acrylic paint, add some aqua spray to it, and try to make that color as close as I can, and water it down, and then I'm just going to splatter it around, so I've got that blue color kind of going around the page and not just in one spot. And I actually really like how it looks, and you can see how this is definitely veered away from just being a pink layout. And you know, sometimes I love how that happens. You know, you have an idea in your mind and things just happen, and you add more colors, or you add something totally different that you hadn't even intended on using, and it winds up being great. It winds up making the layout look better than you thought. And I think that's what that blue did for this. And it's hard to tell here because the lights are so bright, but you'll be able to see it later. Now these are some of the One Canoe 2 enamel shapes, so little crosses or plus signs. I use a couple of the mint ones. Oh, it's definitely time for a new hairdo, you guys. This is terrible. I'm so embarrassed that you just saw my hair. It's terrible. Anyway, I'm going to add in some lines, some journaling, and I think I'm getting close to being done. What do I do at the end? I think I add a little bit of black ink splatters, since I've got the black. That's the only other black thing that I added other than the journaling. But yep, there's the final layout, and I love how it turned out. Like I said, it took a different turn than I anticipated, but it was a good turn, you know, and I love it. I think it turned out great. I love all those flowers. I love how the background looks. I love that striped paper in the background, and I'm glad I added in the blue color. I think it's a pretty addition, and since I added the paint, you kind of got that color going on in more than one place. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to make. Keep an eye out for that cut file. It's coming soon. You'll be able to find it in on the website under the downloads section for November's cut files. Check out hipkitclub.net, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.